we then turn to our final group of presentations, which again are sort of taking a little bit of a bigger picture view of all of this, and where some of these things stand, which have to do with questions of what we colloquially call space, and the more specific question of planetarity and what constitutes planetarity in its astronomic, political, and philosophical modes. One of the things that it's a cliche, but it's true. One of the things that maybe the most important thing the 21st century state space programs discovered was the planet itself. That is, the Earth as a planet, not as a world, in the phenomenological sense. And when we speak of space, we always remind ourselves that Earth is, after all, in space. We are in space right now, as the man says. And so the question of space law, for example, is already a question of Earth law is already a question of space law. The question of space exploration, space science, Earth sciences are all already intermingled. And so one of the ways in which we're looking at this, the question of subsidiarity, of moving the point of governance all the way down to the level of the planet. The first group will take that advice to an unexpected extreme. How far down in the planet this in fact might go. But also, I'll couch some of these questions in the basis of some of this research of looking at ways in which there are precedents for modes of planetary governance that already exist, that have been trained upon the question of how it is that one might govern extraterrestrial astronomic bodies, that we foresee ultimately being retrained upon and absorbing, making subsidiary, if you like, how it is that the astronomic body of Earth is ultimately governed. That space law will come to, perhaps in a certain sense, come to be a kind of macro jurisdiction, at least in some regards, and perhaps retaining to certain kinds of problem spaces and not others, as Niels and Jonathan described. And so the work of the project is looking at the terrestriality and extraterrestriality of this dynamic, and the mirroring and symmetry of those kinds of relationships. That is, if we set aside for a moment the deeply terrestrial, that is, land bias of the precedents of planetary of law that as we've inherited, and looking instead at oceanic law and space law as a kind of conjoined pair, as the environments as a kind of twinned and enjoined environments below the ocean and above and outside the space, we come to see that the terrestriality of this circumstance need not likely to be the only position from which this is articulated. We also come to see the rather important lesson that ultimately there is no viable planetarity without a viable extraplanetary as well. We'll also hear from a group that's done some extraordinary sort of theoretical and philosophical research on the notion of the planetarity in relationship, particularly to Wilfred Salars's scientific and manifest image. But what they're looking at really here has to do with at least a couple modes of what we talk about the planetarity. There's a planetarity that is, in essence, revealed by the artificialization of intelligence, the sensing and modeling and of different kinds of techniques for that we call Earth sciences that have revealed the planet and its Anthropocenic history for us in considerable detail. That always has been there, but now we come to recognize ourselves as situated within it in the specific ways in which it makes clear to us. There's also the question of the planetarity to come, the planetarity that now that we understand this situation, the planetarity that becomes the project, that becomes what we call the terraforming. And it's this relation between a scientific cosmology and a political project or a design project, whatever you want to call it, that is the basis of this work. And for them, that also has to do with a kind of stereoscopic resolution between what we call the scientific image of the planet and the political one as well. Both of these in a kind of correspondence. So with that, I'll hand it off to our last two projects, and then I'll have a few words at the end to try to summarize a little bit of what this all means and where we go from here. So thanks.